In conclusion, it's worth pausing to reflect on the 6 daily practices that have been carefully considered. A period of maturity lived in solitude doesn't necessarily have to be synonymous with isolation. It's the small, conscious choices made each day that determine whether one feels disconnected from the world, or, on the contrary, experiences fullness and deep satisfaction from each day lived. Whether it's creating a structured daily routine, keeping the body moving and toned, cultivating and strengthening social connections, continuously stimulating mental activity, developing a deep sense of gratitude for everything one has, or showing generosity and helping those in need. Each of these habits has enormous potential to transform daily life, filling it with meaning, enriching it with new colors, and giving a sense of deep satisfaction. The reality is that external circumstances are often beyond our control, but there's always an opportunity to choose our reaction to what's happening. Life, by its nature, is dynamic and subject to constant change. People come and go, but the ability to create moments of joy, find one's purpose, and maintain a strong connection with the world remains in everyone's hands. By dedicating oneself to these simple but effective habits, one may be surprised to discover that solitude isn't necessarily synonymous with isolation. Within each person lies an inexhaustible source of possibilities, so much to offer the world, so many joys to enjoy, and countless reasons to greet each new day with optimism and hope. If the ideas presented have resonated with you, it's worth asking yourself an important question. Which of these 6 practices can you start incorporating into your life today? There's no need for radical changes. You can start small. Even the slightest step in the right direction can trigger a chain of positive changes that, over time, will transform your perception of life as a whole, opening up new horizons and opportunities. Surely everyone has encountered a situation where excessive frankness with relatives turned out to be not a blessing, but a source of problems. Over the years, the conviction grows that it's necessary to be extremely honest with loved ones, because complete transparency seems like the ideal strategy. However, life experience suggests that there are topics that are wiser to keep to oneself, guided not by a desire to hide something, but by considerations of wisdom. Not all information is worth sharing, and in certain situations, remaining silent becomes an act of protecting one's own peace of mind and preserving harmony in relationships. This review will consider 5 aspects of life that may be worth keeping out of discussions with family after the age of 65. This isn't about lying or intentionally distancing oneself, but about striving to maintain independence, avoid unnecessary worries, and defend the right to personal space. Many will be surprised at how much more peace of mind the ability to keep some things secret can bring. Understanding these 5 simple principles can transform interactions with family members, giving a greater sense of freedom and satisfaction with life in later years. Questions of financial well-being and capital management occupy a special place in the life of a person who has crossed a certain age threshold. It's widely believed that complete frankness with loved ones regarding one's financial situation can prevent possible misunderstandings. However, as practice shows, such openness often becomes a source of new problems and disagreements. Detailed disclosure of information about savings, investments, and plans for the future can provoke a stream of unsolicited advice, put pressure on decisions, and even lead to sharp conflicts within the family. Different generations often hold diametrically opposed views on the management of money, which only exacerbates the situation. Often, driven by good intentions, relatives begin to show excessive concern and express their opinions, which over time turns into intrusive interference in personal life. Unfortunately, there are frequent cases when people who previously didn't show much interest suddenly become actively interested in financial status after learning about the availability of significant funds. Many witness situations where adults, after sharing their financial plans with their children, face constant criticism and doubts about the correctness of the decisions being made. Others experience constant pressure to change the structure of expenses, reduce the size of housing, revise the investment portfolio, or set aside more funds for the needs of grandchildren. While seeking advice can be beneficial, the situation can quickly spiral out of control and become deeply unpleasant when those around you begin to feel entitled to a say in your personal financial matters. It's crucial to realize that once you've revealed the full picture of your financial situation, retrieving that information becomes virtually impossible. The issue of personal sovereignty in financial matters cannot be overlooked. When loved ones start to perceive you as not being the most prudent financial manager, they may deem it acceptable to interfere in your affairs. Often this is driven by good intentions, but doesn't always respect your desire for independence. You might hear comments questioning the wisdom of certain expenses or advice on reallocating assets. Even if there's no direct pressure, the awareness that your every financial move is being scrutinized can cause significant discomfort. This isn't a call to completely avoid discussing financial matters with family. On the contrary, developing a clear inheritance plan and providing timely information about key aspects seem like reasonable steps. However, there's no need to reveal all your cards, the exact amount of your savings, your spending patterns, or the details of your investment portfolio. Managing these aspects is your prerogative. If keeping certain financial information private helps avoid unsolicited advice and pressure, it's not a sign of secrecy, but rather a wise approach to protecting your personal space and right to make independent decisions. As we age and our bodies undergo natural changes, the number of health complaints tends to increase, and the temptation to share every ailment with loved ones arises. While health becomes an important topic of family discussion, it's important to draw a line between informing them about serious problems and worrying them unnecessarily over minor issues. Constantly mentioning every minor ache or discomfort can create unnecessary anxiety and stress among family members. Furthermore, it can lead to a situation where they start making decisions for you before it's truly necessary. For instance, mentioning a slight joint pain or fatigue might trigger a flurry of advice about seeing a doctor, changing your diet, or taking new supplements. Often driven by good intentions, relatives, especially younger ones, can become overly concerned, which turns into intrusive pressure. Before you know it, they're researching treatments, scheduling doctor's appointments, or even making comments like, "You need to take better care of yourself," as if you haven't been looking after your health your entire life. The psychological aspect of constantly discussing health problems shouldn't be overlooked either. Endless conversations, even about minor ailments, can lead loved ones to perceive you as weaker and more frail than you actually are. Once this perception is formed, it's difficult to change. People may start treating you with excessive caution, excluding you from your usual activities, doubting your ability to travel, or assuming you need extra help. Simply mentioning a fleeting knee pain can trigger a wave of concern and restrictions. Of course, informing them about serious health problems, especially those affecting daily life and requiring support, is necessary. However, choosing to keep minor ailments to yourself isn't a sign of dishonesty, but rather a way to protect your independence. You have every right to manage information about your health, shielding yourself from unnecessary interference and stress. In some cases, silence becomes the optimal strategy for maintaining control over your well-being and preserving a positive perception of yourself among others. Family ties, as we know, can weave into intricate and sometimes unpredictable patterns. Over the years, you may find yourself at the center of events you had no desire to be involved in. Disagreements between siblings over inheritance, years of accumulated grievances among grown children, strained relationships between members of a large family. These scenarios unfold in almost every family. A long life provides the opportunity to observe recurring patterns of behavior, how old wounds resurface, and how history seems to repeat itself. At such times, there's a temptation to intervene, offer wise advice, or express your opinion on who's right and who's wrong. However, as practice shows, such actions often only exacerbate the situation, adding fuel to an already raging fire. It's a situation many have likely encountered. An attempt to play peacemaker ends with both sides of the conflict suddenly uniting against you. or expressing a firm position driven by good intentions, only to later realize your words were completely misinterpreted. The harsh truth of life is that family conflicts usually resolve themselves, or not at all, regardless of anyone's intervention. And when the long-awaited reconciliation finally arrives, words spoken in anger linger in memory. By taking sides or expressing a categorical opinion, one risks finding that even after the dispute itself is long forgotten, resentment towards them still smolders in the hearts of loved ones. Expressing personal opinions becomes especially sensitive when it comes to younger family members. Frank statements about sons-in-law, daughters' parenting methods, or the life priorities of close relatives, however sincere they may seem at the moment, have an unpleasant tendency to linger in memory. Offense and a sense of criticism, even if motivated by good intentions, are rarely forgotten. Advice that seems well-intentioned can be perceived as disapproval, which can lead to an emotional chasm that will be difficult to overcome later. That's why, after crossing the age of 65, it's worth adopting the practice of selective silence. This doesn't mean agreeing unconditionally with everything that happens or ignoring existing problems. It's about refraining from commenting on every family matter. Instead of voicing your opinion, it's sometimes more appropriate to limit yourself to phrases like, "I hope everything works out for the best," or "I'm sure you'll make the right decision." This approach allows you to maintain connections with loved ones without getting involved in dramas whose outcome doesn't depend on you. The ability to restrain certain thoughts can be the key to peace and harmony, not only in the family, but also in your own soul. Reflections on the years lived inevitably lead to a reevaluation of the past, an analysis of decisions made, missed opportunities, and unrealized possibilities. Feeling regret is a universal human experience, but it's not always necessary to make it public, especially within the family. The desire to share thoughts on how things could have been done differently in a career, raising children, or making vital decisions is understandable. However, what seems like sincerity and self-analysis can be misinterpreted by loved ones. When the older generation expresses regrets about the past, children often take it personally. For example, a phrase about wanting to spend less time at work and more with family can be perceived as an admission of insufficient parental care. Regrets about unfulfilled dreams and unrealized moves can be interpreted as dissatisfaction with life with the family. Even if such thoughts don't imply a negative connotation, they can deeply take root in the minds of loved ones, creating unnecessary feelings of guilt and resentment. Therefore, before sharing your regrets, it's worth carefully weighing the possible consequences for the emotional well-being of the family. A similar situation arises with regrets concerning personal relationships. Discussing past love affairs, even innocently, can create a feeling in the spouse or loved ones that they were just a backup option. Even memories of a terminated friendship or unrealized opportunities can change how a person is perceived by those around them. Instead of the image of a strong and unwavering personality they are used to, they may see someone who is mired in the past. That's why some regrets are better left unsaid. It's natural to think about them, analyze them, and even learn lessons, but constantly returning to them in conversations with the family won't change what has already happened. Often, it only places an additional burden on those who love you. The past cannot be rewritten, but how you deal with its consequences is entirely up to you. No less delicate is the full disclosure of financial status. Money is one of the most complex issues in any family. It can unite people, but it can also create tension, misunderstandings, and even conflicts. With age, there may be a need to share more detailed information about your financial situation with loved ones, whether it's the size of savings, plans for inheritance, or even financial difficulties you're facing. And while discussing certain financial matters may be appropriate in some cases, excessive openness about money matters sometimes does more harm than good. Disclosing too much information about financial status carries serious risks, primarily related to changes in the attitudes of those around you. When loved ones discover significant savings, it can trigger a shift in their perception. Some relatives may start viewing the person differently, anticipating financial support or subtly hinting at a future inheritance share. Conversely, displaying financial difficulties can cause undue anxiety among loved ones or even doubts about the competence of decisions being made. Money has a way of transforming relationships, and the consequences of such changes can be difficult to reverse. It's also important to consider the issue of independence. The more information about finances that is available to others, the more often they may feel entitled to give advice, even if it's not needed. Some may start making decisions for the person, believing they are helping, but in reality, they are depriving them of the opportunity to manage their own funds independently. It's quite possible that they will start dictating where to live, how to spend money, or what is best for them, all because of revelations that should have been kept private. Of course, prudence doesn't imply total secrecy. When it comes to trusted individuals, such as a financial advisor or executor, it's wise to clearly document one's intentions. However, except for such cases, the best strategy is often to share information strictly as needed without revealing unnecessary details. Maintaining a certain level of confidentiality allows one to control their own financial future while avoiding unnecessary worries, conflicts, and unsolicited advice. Observing how financial matters can affect interpersonal relationships makes the importance of such prudence clear. Ultimately, managing finances is a personal right, and keeping certain information private helps maintain an atmosphere of love and respect in family relationships, rather than financial expectations. In conclusion, it's worth reflecting once more on the aspects discussed. Withholding some information is not an expression of secrecy or detachment, but a way to protect one's peace of mind, dignity, and harmonious relationships. Not everything is subject to public discussion, and sometimes the wisest decision is knowing when to keep quiet. Surely everyone has experienced situations where openness with loved ones has changed their perception, or conversely, silence has turned out to be the right move. Wisdom comes with experience, and with age comes the realization that some things are best kept to oneself. The advantage of maturity lies in gaining clarity regarding true values, peace of mind, independence, and the quality of relationships. Being selective about what is shared with others allows one to maintain control over one's own life while strengthening strong bonds. It's not about alienating oneself from people, but about preserving the foundations that make those relationships meaningful and valuable.